Hello and welcome to The Switch. The Switch is your guide to personal transformation and emotional well-being. For a switch to exist, there must be at least two distinct states, right? A and B, okay? The good news is that you certainly have these two states in you, as we'll discover today in this first introduction to what we will call our own shadow. I can't believe I've had to wait for so long to introduce and to cover this topic. Really, it's so fundamental. But I guess, so far I had to cover some basics, right? And just to recap what we've been through so far. So in episode 1, we just had a first-hand experience about flicking the switch, right? On a crisis day, on a difficult moment, okay? And then in episode 2, we covered some tips and tricks to find your way to your mental palace. And to buy this precious real estate for yourself, okay? Episode 3 was really about understanding that to find something, sometimes we need to practice its complete opposite, right? We talked about the mojo and the inspiration switch. In episode 4, we acknowledged that, we are weak sometimes and we can be subject to addictions, right? And all the dangers that entails, okay? I think I devoted episode 5 to some intellectual disclaimers towards world religions and philosophies, right? So the fact that, of course, in the switch, we are not thinking in vacuum, right? We'll refer from time to time to other theories and corpus of knowledge, okay? Finally, in the last episode, we discovered the basics of knowing ourselves, right? And we used some Jungian, from Carl Jung's theory, some Jungian concept, and in particular the archetypes or the personality types that can help you understanding the way you work, the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you interact with the world. Okay, so today we're coming back to the basics of flicking the switch, that is shifting your mindset and also your emotional states, right? Which is, of course, much easier when you have cultivated a high degree of self-awareness, right? And you've found a balance across the multiple dimensions of ourselves, okay? Because when we are polarized or when we are in denial of some aspects of ourselves, it becomes far more challenging to make the switch, right? We can be completely caught at one end of the spectrum and we don't see the other end, right? So we need to be aware of all the dimensions of ourselves and of our emotions and of our mindset to be able to effectively flick the switch, okay? So back to the basics. Today, I want to come back to episode 1, where I made an important recommendation to you, if you remember, about flicking the switch, which was the vital need you may have to give yourself some self-love. Good pat in the back, right? And in particular, when you need to flick the switch back into positive territory, okay? So today we are going to dive more specifically into the concept of becoming your own best friend and how it relates to this essential art of flicking the switch, okay? So I'm not using this expression lightly, right? Becoming our best friend. Because when I say that, becoming my own best friend, I mean that I really need to treat myself as I would someone I care deeply about. Not necessarily a partner or a lover, but really a friend, right? Like the best friend you have in the world. Think about that and think about how you're going to treat yourself this way, okay? And a good way to put that is, for instance, you remove the prefix self from all the terms you hear usually about self-love, self-compassion, self-acceptance, self-care, self-respect, right? So consider extending that to yourself, right? So just talk about love, compassion, acceptance, care, respect. That's what you would give a friend, right? So that's really a good way to put it. Okay. So imagine you being your own best friend, or imagine your best friend comes to you and reveals to you their deepest insecurities and their darkest thoughts and doubts and even their most embarrassing moments, okay? Would you judge them harshly? Of course not. Would you condemn them? Of course not as well, right? They are your best friend. So So you'd be not judgmental. You'd listen with an open heart. You'd offer compassion and understanding, and you would accept them wholly, right? The good, the bad, and everything in between, including the ugly sometimes, right? They're your friend, okay? So we're talking about unconditional acceptance, which is precisely what we need to offer to ourselves, okay? In my eyes, this is really a fundamental prerequisite to any form of personal transformation and ultimately any form of fulfillment, if you hope for fulfillment, okay? And that's not obvious because we are in the age of social media, the digital age, right? Where, you know, we advertise ourselves constantly out there and we often present only the highlight reel of our lives, so to speak, right? Only the polished and curated, perfected version of ourselves and of our life, okay? So it's like we have only one side of the coin, right? This is me, woe me, I'm perfect, everything is fine. That's what we project on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, even on LinkedIn, from a professional perspective, you name it, okay? So we hide away the parts that we deem really unlovable or even unacceptable, right? And, you know, not socially acceptable, okay? So that's the call out. Today, I'm suggesting that the time has come for you to beyond too simplistic the idea of self-compassion and self-love, just be your own best friend. That self-compassion and self-love are not enough. You need to go one step further. You need to be your own best friend. I won't say it enough in this episode, including with the dark, hidden, and imperfect you, and all these sides of yourself that you're never talking about, not only on social media, but even to your family, to your partner, to your friends, all these things you're hiding. No, we need to go beyond that, and we need to uncover that, unpack it, and even that we are going to make sure that we love, right? So I'm conscious of the fact and be aware of the fact that that entails a lot more work than just self-love and self-esteem, obviously, okay? So it's just the truth that we are multifaceted beings, okay? If we want to take it simplistically to start with, we just, like a coin, we have at least two sides, okay? So we have a light side and a side which is more in the shadows. And I'm using the word shadow on purpose, right? We are back again to Swiss psychologist Carl Jung, who indeed coined the term shadow to describe this particular aspect of our own personality that we suppress, that we deny, and which is actually most often subconscious, okay? It's not about necessarily negative traits, but it's more about these parts of ourselves that we have learned to conceal, right? From childhood, from very early on, because of social conventions, because of the way we've been brought up, because of shame, because of a trauma. So it's under the surface, right? And it's in the shadows. So we call it the shadow of ourselves. It's important to acknowledge it and to embrace it, right? If you don't do that, there's no way you're going to be able to become your best friend. Think about it, right? Why is your best friend your best friend? It's probably because at some point there was, an agreement of trust, implicit or verbalized, that you could confide, and something was revealed, something very private, very intimate. Okay, so that's exactly the same here. You're going to put on the table things which you've not disclosed to anyone else so far. Okay, so what you're going to do is really invite your shadow into the safe space of your mind palace. Remember the mind palace that we spoke about in episode 2? I think this is the place, the safe place where you're allowing yourself to express your fears and your weaknesses without any concern about being judged. So this process of, I would say, integration with your shadow is key to self-acceptance and personal growth. Okay? Now let's talk about how you discover your own shadow. Right? How do you flush it out? How do you bust it out? I can tell you from first-hand experience, this isn't always easy. And It can even happen out of life circumstances, like life events, sometimes unannounced and without any warning or notice. As far as my own experience goes, that was pretty brutal and quite shattering, really. I spent a lot of time in my life where, you know, I was extremely confident, you know, sure of my feet and of my, you know, my knowledge and my conceptions of life. I had a very strong ego. And I believed that, you know, I could self-develop into becoming anything, right? There was virtually no limit. And one day I met my shadow. I'm not going to give you here the accounts of the detailed experience, but yeah, that was quite crushing. And it can be an elating experience at times, but also a crushing one and a very, you know, belittling, humbling, humiliating experience. Can be spiritual. Some people call that an epiphany. Some people might, you know, also associate that with a form of, you know, graceful moment. Okay, so flushing out your shadow. It's most often, you know, most often it lies buried deep within your subconscious. Okay, and it's only emerging, this shadow, when it's triggered by the life circumstances and the personal experiences, as I said. Okay. If that's not the case, and again, I've experienced that firsthand, and some people would do that. If you're not yet aware of your shadow and your unconscious, some people adopt the strategy of deliberately placing themselves into situations of tension or discomfort. We can call that getting out of the comfort zone. We can call that being adventurous. Some people go full daredevils, right? Putting themselves in a degree of danger, right? Just to see what they are capable of, what side of themselves this is going to reveal, right? So I claim that all that is really part of a movement to go towards your own hidden self and discovering yourself. Some people would call that the quest, you know, personal quest or journey to yourself, okay? But that's all a common pattern of putting yourself in situations with tension and discomfort to unveil these hidden facets of your own being, okay? In literature, we could allude to also to the famous scene in Frank Herbert's sci-fi classic Dune. I think that's one of the very first scenes where Paul Atreides, the main character, undergoes the test of the gum jabbar. So the gum jabbar is this poison needle, right? That the nun or the mother, the reverend from the Bene Gesserit order, is submitting this young prince to the test to find out if he's a human or if he's an animal, right? So the Bene Gesserit sisterhood use a poison needle to discern whether an individual can master their instinctive responses, right? So I think it's a powerful metaphor for confronting our own fears and our own impulses, instincts, and animal instincts, right? The animal side of ourselves that very often we bury deep down. Yeah, call it instinctive subconscious. So at the end of the day, the goal isn't to eliminate these aspects of ourselves, right? They're there, right? It's part of us. We are partly animal, right? But so rather we need to accept them and to let them wash over us, right? We don't want to. It's okay for them to wash over us, but not without being controlled, right? Okay, so that's what I want to say about this shadow and these hidden aspects of ourselves. There's been another piece of work, interesting work lately about psychologist Phil Stutz. You might have seen this as a TV series lately on Netflix, where Stutz, who has now some degenerative disease, is interviewed by this actor. His name eludes me, right? But from Greek background. And it's a nice series. And Stutz is explaining his tools, his psychological tools to cope with life, really, and be on a personal growth journey. And at some point he mentions the shadow tool, okay? And it's really Jungian, right? Carl refers back to Carl Jung's again, where Stutz says or believes that by facing and accepting our shadow, this part of ourselves that we are ashamed of or that holds us back, we can really access our true potential, right? So that's another way to have a look at the shadow. It's about integrating all parts of ourselves, including the hidden ones, to become whole, really whole. Okay? So as we embark on this journey of self-discovery, it's important to be mindful of some of the pitfalls of discovering your shadow, right? You know, self-awareness can be a bitch, excuse my French, and some people fall into excessive self-esteem, for instance, which can really veer into nasty narcissism, okay? Or on the other hand, excessive self-deprecation can lead to self-sabotage, and it's not good either, right? So there's really multiple aspects and dimensions to this journey to ourselves, and we need to be very careful to strike the right balance so that you know, we can extend to ourselves the same care, compassion, and honesty we would offer to our best friend. So let's not be too demanding to ourselves in going either way in this self-discovery journey. So we need to support ourselves through challenges, we need to encourage ourselves to grow, and we need to offer subtle and gentle guidance when we stumble along the way. It happens. We need to celebrate our victories, the big and the small ones, and we need to comfort ourselves in moments of defeat or doubt. Okay. Another way to make sure that you reach to the core of yourself, and not just the surface, but the core, including things which are not so great. It's to look at yourself in the mirror in the morning, you know, in the bathroom, and to really verbalize it and say, I see you, I accept you, and not just that, but you know what, I love you. Don't worry, it's going to be okay. Right? And you know, the common wisdom says, I can watch myself in the mirror. I will take that literally. Right? It's not just a metaphor. Looking at yourself in the mirror and trying to peer through your own eyes down to your own soul is a healthy daily exercise. Okay, and I say daily because it can be a lifelong journey. I believe I'm still in this journey of, you know, going, you know, peeling the onion skin, and you know, one by one going to the core of myself, right? And discovering sometimes some aspects that I say, oh, really? Am I really like that? Yeah, I might. I might be that weak or that intolerant, you know, and so I say, oh, I might be that creative. Or, you know, it's not necessarily negative. It's peeling to find out what has been hidden so far. Okay, but altogether, in any case, it requires courage to face our own shadow and to be vulnerable. I have the vulnerability to admit our flaws, and in so doing, being compassionate and love ourselves unconditionally. Okay? So back again to this idea of creating a safe inner sanctuary, right? We called it the mental palace, or the retreat abode, so that you can engage regularly in self-reflection. To make this time to extend yourself the same ear, the same kindness, the same grace you would give to your most cherished friend, okay? So that, you know, it becomes something that you factor in. It's a regular routine and mechanism that you make appointments to yourself in this mental palace. This is the path to integrate with your shadow, right? And to become whole again, and have a very deep and unshakable sense of self, of who you really are beyond the surface, right? Once you have that, I can guarantee it will become much easier to flick the switch, right? Because you'll have a better sense of the contours of yourself, of the perimeter, right? And you know that if you are this side, you can easily go to the other side, right? So it's sort of mind map of yourself. And of course, navigating around that, flicking the switch, instantly teleporting yourself from one end to another, it's much easier, okay? The idea is that we no longer, fight against denied or suppressed part of ourselves, right? Instead, they are not suppressed anymore. They become resources and wisdom, okay? So, as you step into your mental palace and you create a space for a non-judgmental and self-acceptance conversation, I would say that just invite your shadow for tea. I'd say, hey, come over, sit down, let's have a heart-to-heart together, right? it's actually a heart-to-heart with yourself, but just with someone that, this part of yourself that, you know, you tend to ignore so far, right? So you just welcome your shadow for tea and talk to it like it's your dearest friend, really. And you will offer yourself a unique gift in doing that, okay? This isn't about perfection whatsoever. Nothing is perfect, or everything is imperfectly perfect. It's really about wholeness, being whole. It's about accepting and loving all the parts of yourself, right? Even the ones that feel unlovable, but they are, okay? It's about recognizing that, of course, you have flaws and you have struggles, right? It's part of what makes you beautifully, imperfectly human, okay? So whilst you're on this journey to self-friendship, be patient. Be patient with yourself. Take time. That's okay. Sit down. Have a breath, okay? Offer yourself the same grace you would extend to a loved one. And most importantly, celebrate every progress you feel you're making together with your shadow, right? No matter how small, right? It's a little bit like the story of the Little Prince from Saint-Exupéry and the fox, right? And every day the prince tries to tame the fox, right? But the fox tells him, no, it will take days, but one step at a time, and every day you'll get closer, and one day you can pat me. I claim that it's going to be the same type of work with your shadow, right? You will unlock a wellspring of potential and peace, especially when you are in this mental palace, right? In this sanctum with yourself. The relationship you will have with yourself is the longest you will ever have in your life, if you think about it, right? Your parents, unfortunately, at some point will be gone. Your children will live their life, and anyways, they were not there when you were born, right? So you may have friends, but really the person you have always been with all your life and until your last breath is yourself, okay? So nurture yourself and your shadow with care. Infuse this relationship with compassion. Let it be a source of strength, resilience, self-control, and unconditional love, okay? I repeat, you are not perfect. I am not perfect. Your flaws are many, and mine as well, but that's okay. We are all imperfect. What matters is to be aware of this start of imperfect perfection, or the other way around, to accept it, and in doing so to gain more balance and more control on the way we are leading our lives and we are growing, okay? I'd like also to pick this opportunity again to remind you of a common misconception, which is really way too common, according to which people say, oh, you know, we only live once. Incorrect, okay? Super wrong. We only die once, but we can live every day until then, until the day we die, right? So that's what really matters, okay? And I think with that, we come to the end of today's episode, right? Meeting the shadow and talking about it and how to flush it out. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of self-friendship and the integration with your own shadow. Remember that the journey to becoming your own best friend is a lifelong one, filled with twists and turns and endless opportunities for growth. It will be a difficult one at times. But if you embrace the process, if you are kind with yourself and you never forget that you're worthy of your own love and acceptance, keep on a steady path, on a steel rail to yourself and to more fulfillment. Until next time, this is The Switch. Take care and see you soon. For whatever comes next, you'll be surprised. See you soon.